Today I wanted to bring up this topic again for like the fourth time in a row. I'm talking about Israel Adesanya and what has been happening in the media. And I wanted to talk about this interview with a certain fighter where he pretty much justifies and reinforces the narrative that's been going around about Israel Adesanya being off that night. He was slow, he wasn't good, he wasn't prepared for Sean Strickland. Whatever the narrative that you might have heard that's been floating around the UFC by Dana White and the media, another fighter pretty much reinforced that narrative and gives absolutely no credit to the win that Sean Strickland had against Israel Adesanya. Nobody besides maybe a few guys in the MMA sphere are giving any credit to Sean Strickland. And now that I've heard this fighter come out and give their opinion and their take, it only digs the grave further for them. I can't believe this dude. This guy is actually the biggest Adesanya fan I've ever seen. And listen, I have people in my comment sections. This entire week, I've been making Adesanya videos. And not a single person in my comment section so far in those videos proved to me or proved that they were a bigger Adesanya fan than Ian Garry. This guy is a huge Adesanya fan. He probably has posters in his room of Adesanya. This guy probably went to the doctor's office after Adesanya beat Pereira. This Ian Garry is by far the biggest Adesanya fan that I've ever seen, because this guy, he went on Ariel Helwani's podcast and just spouted nonsense. Nonsense. And listen, I don't care. You can have your opinion. You can be an Adesanya fan. It doesn't bother me. Everybody has to be a fan of somebody if you're a UFC fan. And so you picking Adesanya doesn't hurt me at all, right? As long as you don't justify some of the weird things that Adesanya has done, you're not bad in my book. But when you're Ian Garry and you take away from the performance from Sean Strickland, like I'm about to show you in this next clip, it's just straight up dumb. And Ian Garry has already proven to us, to me, to everybody in the UFC that he is pretty much unbearable. And now he's going in there and just, dude, give Strickland some credit, man. I want to see somebody that's like a fighter, that's really in the in, that's part of the UFC media. Just give this guy some fucking credit, man. How hard is it to do that? Nobody gives him any credit. Now I'm gonna play the clip here. I'm gonna give my take afterwards. Let it roll.
And I want to get to Boston in a moment, but did you watch Saturday night? And if so, what did you make of that result in the main event?
Yeah, I watched it, obviously. I feel like Izzy lost the fight more than Sean Strickland won the fight.
Wow, okay. This is different than our previous two guests. Please elaborate for us.
I feel like there was a certain point in that fight where I feel like Izzy was afraid to lose more than he wanted to win. That essentially meant that his efficiency, his output, his shot selection wasn't as elite as it normally is. And it gave Sean Strickland the opportunity for his awkwardness to have success and his constant pressure to have success. And I feel like if you run that fight back, there's no way Sean Strickland gets his hand raised again. That's my opinion. The truth is, Ariel, when you watch the fight back, what did Sean do that was elite?
But wasn't it just like he stuck to the basics and he was just really good at what he did?
He done this for most of the fight.
Yeah.
Threw a jab and threw fuck all kicks. If Izzy had the output that he usually does, or the efficiency that he usually does, and I can't knock Sean for having a part of that awkwardness and that lack of efficiency from Izzy. Obviously, his awkwardness played into the fight, but I just feel like Izzy wasn't picking the shots he normally would, and he wasn't operating on full cylinders. And I think if they run that back, Izzy dominates.
So there, you have Ian Garry pretty much saying that Israel Adesanya would win the rematch and that he was playing not to lose, that he was fighting not to lose. I don't think Israel Adesanya, right? I don't think Israel Adesanya, he probably can show up better than what he did against Sean Strickland, but I don't think that he was totally just not himself, was a shell of himself, that he was nothing. Listen, this discredits so much about Sean Strickland. Imagine you pull off one of the biggest upsets in UFC history. You do the impossible. Everybody before this fight was counting you out. Nobody said that you could win. It was impossible for you to win. And guess what? You came in there and you not only beat this guy, not by fluke, you exposed him for the holes in his game. Strickland did not go out there and just get a fluke KO win. He went out there and completely dismantled Israel Adesanya with a 1-2 and a counter hook and a front kick. That's what he did. He went in there and just completely exposed the game of Israel Adesanya, right? And nobody is reiterating that. I don't think Ian Garry really watched the fight. I don't think he really went in there with an honest heart and watched Sean Strickland put a whooping on Israel Adesanya. He went in there and saw Israel Adesanya losing and decided to start coping as the fight was happening. I can almost guarantee you that. I can almost guarantee you, as that fight was happening, Ian Garry was sitting there watching that fight and being like, whoa, why does Adesanya look so bad? Why is he so trash right now? He has to be hurt. He has to be injured. He's fighting not to lose. And not saying, wow, look at Sean Strickland. He's actually beating Israel Adesanya and exposing the holes in his game. But instead, we have Ian Garry coping. Like I said, everybody is coping. And listen, Ian Garry is unbearable. The thing with Neil Magny was already bad enough. It was already bad enough. Now, this isn't that bad. This isn't a career ender. But at this point, what do you mean, Ian Garry? He would go in there and destroy Strickland in a rematch? What evidence do you have of that? This guy just lost 49-46 in a dominant decision. If you think he might go back in there and be improved and beat a guy like Sean Strickland, that's fair. I think it's totally fair. If you're going to pick Adesanya in the rematch, if it does happen, I don't think he deserves one. But if a rematch does happen and you do pick Adesanya, I wouldn't hate the pick. I wouldn't mind it. But saying he would go in there and destroy Sean Strickland, I think is a pretty crazy statement. If I'm picking Adesanya in the rematch, I'm saying, I don't know, Sean Strickland, he just put a whooping on him for 5 rounds. He might come in there and improve his game and be better and eventually beat Sean Strickland. But what I'm not saying is that Strickland is going to get absolutely wiped by Israel Adesanya if they rematched. I'm not making excuses for Israel Adesanya is what I'm trying to say here. This guy lost fair and square. He got beat. And so I'm tired of this whole narrative. I'm going to keep making videos about this until we finally get some recognition on Sean Strickland. It's just so crazy to me that Ian Garry can sit there with a straight face and say, what did Sean do that was elite? That completely blows my mind. It was simple. It was very fundamental. That doesn't make it not elite. You don't have to have crazy spinning wheel kicks to be considered elite. If you can make simple reads, if you can stick to the fundamentals, you can be elite at the fundamentals. That's pretty simple in my brain, right? If you can master a 1-2, guess what you are? You are elite at the 1-2. Sean Strickland is elite at the basics. And Sean Strickland, training with multiple people, learning how to master that 1-2, made him an elite fighter. He just beat the world champion who has 5 title defenses. He has 5 title defenses. He beat him clear and convincingly. And I'm telling you this, it does not matter if you don't think he was elite in that fight. He just beat him. Put some respect on Sean Strickland's name. I don't care what you think about Sean Strickland. If he's so basic that he doesn't look elite to you, I don't care. He just beat your boy Israel Adesanya. Cope harder. I just don't understand. I don't care if you don't like Sean Strickland's style. That's perfectly fair. I don't like Sean Strickland's style. You don't have to like his style, but it doesn't mean that he's not elite at his style. I don't understand Ian Garry's logic in this. He's already pretty much made himself unbearable in my eyes and a lot of the UFC fan base's eyes. He's already been a pretty unbearable person with the whole Neil Magny situation, basically creating a dumb narrative out of thin air. Like, I don't think Neil Magny, again, is spinning wheel kicking his kids in the face. And yet again, we had Ian Garry sitting here calling him a whatever you wanted to call it, I can't say on YouTube, but calling him a very naughty word or naughty name that could have legal ramifications onto Neil Magny, and him trying to virtue signal about that just made him, to me, a despicable person. He doesn't actually believe that about Neil Magny, and if he does actually believe that about Neil Magny, he is, quite ignorant. I'm not going to lie to you. And yeah, okay, be an Adesanya fanboy, but also be realistic and also live in the real world. Strickland just beat your boy 49-46 by using his unelite style. Cope.